You're watching Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid, and today is the 7th of August 2024. Our leading story is, of course, on Palestine, day 306 of the war between Israel and Palestine. Nothing has changed since the 7th of October 2023, although some signs are still there of a ceasefire that could happen. That could happen is a whole question mark because of what has happened in Beirut and what has happened also by the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. Speaking of Ismail Haniyeh, there is a new leader of Hamas in his place now, and already Israel has taken its serious reservation as far as this new leader is also concerned, and the Israeli military saying that it is going to do the needful as far as also taking care of this new head of Hamas. This said, there is also tension from the Hezbollah side with the televised address of its chief. There is also a lot of tension within Palestine and within the neighboring countries as well as to what is going to be the reaction from Hezbollah as well as Iran after the killings of Shakur and Ismail Haniyeh. And the reaction still has to come, and a lot of people are saying the next 48 to 72 hours are very crucial, but let's see how things happen. This and more is going to be part of our leading segment. Then we are going to discuss the what is happening in Bangladesh. Now, we all know that Hasina has fled the country, is in India, is being given a safe place to stay in India, and also was received by officials of the Indian government as well. The new interim government is about to be put into place, and the president of Bangladesh has agreed to Dr. Muhammadyunas as being the head of this new interim government, who is now back as well. He was outside the country for a medical treatment. The protests have dissipated, but the demands still remain in place as to what the protesters want from this interim government. As soon as this is formed, let's see how things will move along as far as Bangladesh is also concerned. But of course, many other countries across the world are also eyeing Bangladesh as to how this transition is going to take place. Then we are going to talk about Kamalaharris, who has picked her vice president, timwalz, who seems to have a lot of things going in his favor, whether it be free school meals, goals for tackling climate change, tax cuts for the middle class, and other things. This is what he has been promoting when he was governor, and this is maybe one of the reasons why Kamalaharris has taken him as her vice presidential nominee. Then we are going to talk about a new study that reveals more on the early hobbits in Indonesia's flores. The hobbits, you know, we've seen the films, but they in fact are based on reality on a certain time where the size of the human beings or our predecessors was not that large or that big. I mean, they were small, and that is why they were known as hobbits. A new study suggests that the ancestors of the diminutive Homo florensis, named hobbits after the fictional characters in the Lord of the Rings, were even shorter. This is based on findings that have been unearthed very recently. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns Palestine, day 306, and all that is ensuing. A lot has been happening, but there's a lot of tension, not only within Palestine but also within the Middle East. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Dr. Saira Nawaz Abbasi, international affairs expert. She joins us in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Saira, to have joined us. Dr. Saira, Israel conducts a systematic policy of prisoner abuse. There's nothing new there, but there's a report from B'Tselem, a group that documents human rights violations by Israel in the occupied West Bank and other areas. It says the treatment meted out to prisoners was a deliberate policy implemented under the direction of the far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. They have held interviews with around 55 prisoners from Gaza, the West Bank, and all those other prisons where the Palestinians are, and there are a lot of stories on the brutalities that have taken place with the prisoners during their prison time. Shouldn't this revelation be a just cause for an ICJ or an ICC judgment in your point of view? They are already taken out judgments on the way Israel has conducted the war, but shouldn't this be an addition to it?
Yeah, the revelation in the B'Tselem report is very disturbing, even for a layman like me, who is the student of international affairs. there is a systematic torture, systematic war crimes, abuse, sexual assault, and so many kinds of disturbing facts which should raise the concern among the international bodies such as International Court of Justice, not only International Court of Justice but International Criminal Court also. And these reports warrants the international investigation by these international bodies because there is systematic abuse of not only violation of not only these bodies but also the violation of international human rights and the violation of what is the so-called international rule-based system. So yes, these bodies should take concerns. The international community should be raising their voice, and these are enough to put pressure on these international bodies, I think.
But the whole question is whether that will eventually happen or not, because we see so many statements, so many resolutions. I mean, one example, United Nations Security Council resolution that is taken out, but nothing happens as an eventuality. So this is the main concern as to, despite all the facts and figures that are being given, what is the eventual result?
But you see, the more and more countries are involving into raising their questions about the effectiveness of these international bodies, and that would put pressure, if not any other kind of but diplomatic pressure on these international bodies to take some tangible actions. But you're right that unless or until there is the commitment of those who are the custodians of these international bodies, what I mean, the role of powerful international power centers like USA, like China, like Russia, if they would not take an active role into that, then that would not definitely bring any kind of tangible results of these reports. They will just be reports to show the world, which further authenticate the hegemony of the US and further authenticate that Israel is free to do anything in the international arena.
All right. Leader of Hezbollah, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, has a televised address and says and pledges for a strong and effective response to the killing of its commander by Israel last week, no matter the consequences, and said Hezbollah would either act alone or with its regional partners. There is concern rising in the Middle East that this could tip up, if there is a very strong reaction of the Hezbollah or even from Iran, that it could tip up to bring the whole Middle East in this war, which is more or less already happening as far as the recent events are concerned. What kind of response, in your point of view, is being anticipated by Hezbollah or by Iran, and what consequences would it have, in your point of view, for the Middle East region and for the world at large?
So we have to understand one thing to analyze the situation is that Israel, whenever there is a kind of any truce development leading towards peace, or the last time in your show we discussed the Beijing Declaration,
of course,
which unites all the factions of Palestine, and it was evident that something positive and peace, we are going towards the peace. But whenever such kind of efforts have been made, Israel has ruined those efforts through either targeting Iranian embassy and then the killing of Hezbollah leader and the killing of the Hamas leader. So I think Israel is trying to expand the scope of the war and want to bring the other countries, particularly Iran, into the war. And not only that, Netanyahu had been pressurizing and putting pressure on the Joe Biden to indulge into the direct confrontation.
You remember when Netanyahu was in the US and when he addressed the Congress and he was putting all the blame on Iran?
Yeah, because he wants something tangible, direct confrontation between US and Iran, so that he could achieve his objectives, the Israel's objectives, strategic objectives. So I think Iran should be very, very cautious, and Iran should take very rational act and should adopt the rational approach towards looking into this, because escalating the war, getting direct confrontation with the US would not be fruitful for the Iranians also. And I think they are mindful of the fact also, because of course they know that what are the intentions of the Netanyahu. So I think according to my analysis, there will be more restrained and controlled and strategic response towards what
But do you expect the same strategic and controlled response from Hezbollah?
No, Hezbollah has been, engaged since the war had been started between the Hamas and the Israel. So their tactic is to engage Israelis and to exhaust them, which they will keep on doing that. And in international relations, we see the action-reaction phenomena. So action-reaction phenomena, and then engaging Israel would be their tactic. They will be continuing with that, and the response of Israel would be going towards that. But I think Iran would be more strategic in terms of their response to the current situation.
All right, let's see. I mean, the next couple of days are very crucial as far as that is concerned. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Dr. Saira, says a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas is in its final stage. This is what he says, and calls for all parties to finalize it as soon as possible. Could a finalization of this ceasefire agreement that we've been hearing since weeks galore, could eventually happen? If it does, could it dissipate the regionalization of this war?
If this could happen, of course, it would dissipate the regionalization of the conflict. But in your program, and like I just mentioned, that whenever there is such effort had been made, that had been ruined by the actions of the Israel.
It looks as if it's deliberate. That Israel does not want peace in the region, so that it can continue with its activities and Netanyahu can stay in power.
There is one other thing which is linked with this. Many analysts, they believe that when the war will end, it will bring an end to the Netanyahu's career also, political career also. So probably for that matter, Netanyahu does not want to end the war. Rather, it wants to expand the conflict. The second thing that you are talking about is for any mediation, what is most important is the trust and reliability, which is lost in this case after the assassination of Ismail Hania. So when there is lack of trust between the parties who are negotiating, I don't think that will bring any fruitful outcome of any negotiating process.
I kind of more or less agree, but I want to stay optimistic on that front as well. Hamas yesterday names Yahyasinwar, the man Israel says masterminded the October 7 attacks. This is their point of view, as the new political chief following, of course, the assassination of Ismail Hania. The Israeli military states that Israel is committed to killing Yahyasinwar following his election as Hamas's political bureau leader. When Israel's intention is more than clear, don't you feel statements like these already add fuel to fire?
Of course, they will add fuel to the fire, and they will further worsen and bring more escalation into the conflict. That will not bring, any kind of, this is what we say, the coercive diplomacy, that they are more relying on the coercion and, instigating them so that they should bring more aggression into their acts, and then, Israel use them as, excuse for their own actions. So that is instigation, I believe.
Dr. Saira, the fact is that if we look at the atrocity that are going on in Palestine, if I just had to name a few, what is happening in the Beit Hanun area of Gaza city, where the Israeli army has said that people need to evacuate. And the evacuation is another thing altogether, because the displacement of people from Rafah to Gaza, Gaza to Rafah, one area of Gaza to the other area of Gaza, is something that is beyond the reasoning as far as I am concerned. And also whether it be Khan Yunus, whether it be Jenin, just look at the casualties. Around 40,000 people have already been killed, 39,677, and this does not include those who are buried under the rubble, those who we do not have any trace of it, and around 92,000 people have been wounded so far. Do you feel, the Israeli aims and gains is quite evident, their end game is quite evident, but can it change under the right circumstances, under the right pressure? Or do you feel the powers that be are supporting whatever Israel wants?
We have to understand these. Actually, the thing that is attached to this conflict is more of geopolitics and the power politics also. Like you say that, you ask me that, do you think that what will be the end game of the Israel?
Of Israel. But it's more than clear, isn't it? What they want. They want a complete annihilation of Palestine. They want the Israeli settlers to come in and,
and they want to eliminate Hamas and the militias also.
Yes. But, but in the guise of doing that, they are doing a lot more to Palestine and to the Palestinians. Isn't that the case?
Yes, that's true. And what I was referring to the power politics is that we have to understand one thing, that this conflict and the Israel atrocities around the world had been condemned by almost every other nation except few, meaning that this dispute or this conflict has a bad repute. Then why the United States is attached with this dispute? They have given every kind of help and assistance to the Israel, and that is bringing US into the bad format also. So what we have to understand is that maybe the talk about the rising multipolarity, US is perceived as, for me, as a more insecure, declining power which want to assure that still we are powerful and nothing could be achieved without the help of the United States or whatever. So I think US is doing this thing because of their own power politics thing. They want to get away from the China's role, the Russia's role into the Middle East, and they want to assert, or I think there has been more use of words of reassert of the United States, which is quite alarming for their power into the Middle Eastern region.
And it doesn't seem as if in the coming months or even whenever the elections happen, that whichever government comes will change their policy vis-a-vis Israel, because this is what their policy vis-a-vis Israel has been. Dr. Saira, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saira Nawaz Abbasi, ladies and gentlemen, our leading international affairs expert, joining us for this very important segment. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns Bangladesh and all that has been happening. We did cover it yesterday as well, but we thought it would be better to kind of do a follow-up of what has been happening. We all know that Sheikh Hasina is no longer in Bangladesh as we speak. We also know that she has been given a safe space in India as we speak, till such time that she can, and if she can, go to a third country to seek political asylum. This said, the son of Sheikh Hasina has said openly that she does no longer want to pursue politics, but I've been told it's not the first time that this has been said. The student protesters had been asking for a certain Nobel laureate to head the interim government, and that has been accepted by the Bangladeshi president, Mohammad Shahabuddin. And he has appointed muhammadyunas, Dr. Muhammadyunas, who had been recommended by all the student protesters. This said, the president has also recommended that a veteran of the war should be nominated to the interim government as well. How will this interim government work? When will the elections happen? Because the last time the elections happened were also in the beginning of this year, but most of the political parties had boycotted this election. What is the political fate of Bangladesh? And with all eyes on the country, how is it going to move forward as far as its relations with important neighbors such as India and Pakistan is concerned? We've been joined by two important guests to talk about that. Dr. Tughral, Yamin, one of our favorite guests on international affairs, whether it be the US or our regional countries, joins us in the studio. Thank you very much, Dr. Tughral, to have joined us. And Mohammad Solyman Sumon from the Quota reform activist movement joins us from Bangladesh as well. Solyman, thank you very much to have joined us from Bangladesh. Let's begin with you, Dr. Tughral, Yamin. The protest leaders in Bangladesh say they expect members of an interim government led by Muhammadyunas to be finalized today, after Of course, we all know Sheikh Hasina Wajid fled the country and is now in India as we speak. But he has been appointed. Dr. Mohammad Yunus has officially been appointed. He was on medical treatment abroad. He has returned now, and he's more than 80 years of age. But there's a lot of confidence that is being bestowed on him by the students and the others. The President, Mohammad Shahabuddin, also recommends that a veteran of the war should also be nominated to the interim government. My question is, do you feel that Dhaka will return to normal once this interim government is announced, or do you feel the student protesters will continue to demand the other points that they have been talking of since these protests began?
I think it will take time before Dhaka returns to complete normality, because these students, although they have a spokesperson, Nahid Islam Sahab, who's been talking about what the students want and what kind of government they would like to have, or what kind of conditions they would like to have in Bangladesh. But students are students. So these are students against discrimination, and they are still young undergrads or maybe graduate students also. But I think they are young people, many of them very highly emotionally charged, because they've been able to overthrow a dictator, a woman who's been very, very brutal, who has broken no dissent, who has killed teenagers who had supported Pakistan, and she has sent them to the gallows. So these young people, they will take time, and although they have expressed a lot of confidence in Dr. Yunus, who himself was on the receiving end, he was the...
Because he had been incarcerated for 6 months, but he wasn't in the country when this happened.
Right now he is in Paris, and he is undergoing some kind of medical procedure, also 84-year-old. But he is well known for his microfinancing, the Grameen Bank. A very famous man, but he was also... his entire reputation was besmirched by this woman, Hasina Wajid, and he was accused of graft and corruption and whatnot. So what I'm trying to say is that the students are young men. They still have to go into real life. They have to have jobs. So I don't know really how long would it take before Bangladesh returns to complete normality. And as you have seen, that the president of Bangladesh, Shahabuddin Ahmed Saab, has said that he wants war veterans also in the interim cabinet. So war veterans or their children have been a bone of contention previously. The anti-quota movement was against...
Exactly, because this is exactly what the student protesters were talking about. This was something that the High Court had reinstated this year, and that is what led to these protests.
Why should they be? I mean, it has been more than 50 years now that Bangladesh is an independent country, and they were still trying to give
some kind of impetus to it all.
Absolutely. So I really don't know. It will take time. I don't know whether these students themselves would like to have a political role as such, because this is not a Taliban movement.
Of course.
Taliban were Taliban. They were madrasa students, and they did not. They were not foreseeing life careers in the corporate world or.
But you know that took a very wrong turn, and we all see the results of what the Taliban are up to right now. But this is a very, very different movement.
Absolutely.
Because these are educated young men, and these are men that want to change the destiny, and women who want to change the destiny of Bangladesh. Which brings me to one of these young men, Mohammad Solyman. Sumon, thank you very much to have joined us. Solyman, I'd like to understand, what are your expectations from Dr. Mohammad Yunus as far as the formation of the new interim government is concerned? This is what a lot of you and your colleagues are saying, that you want the interim government to be put into place by today. Give us an update on what are the latest details as far as this interim government is concerned, and when is Dr. Yunus going to return to Bangladesh? His spokesperson says tomorrow, but is it going to be tomorrow or is it going to be later?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me here. Dr. Mohammad Yunus will be coming tomorrow. It is for sure. He is coming tomorrow at around 2 p.m. So he will be landed in Dhaka. You know, Nobel laureate Dr. Yunus is genius, and it is shameful for us that our country never utilizes his potential and excellence. Now, this is our time. We think he can make a great impact in this crucial situation. You know, dictator Hasina killed democracy in our country. Corruption is in every sector of our system because of her. We have faith on Dr. Yunus that he can bring us back democracy and will make our country proud again. You know, in the beginning, Our demand was simple, only quota reformation. But now time is changed, so our demands. We have got a chance to rebuild our country, then why should not we? The victory we got by blood, why should let it go? Now we want changes in this corrupted system that has been carried forward by dictator Hasina for years. A democratic system must be introduced. We want changes in our constitution as well. So we have faith on Nobel laureate Dr. Mohammad. He will come. Firstly, he was not agreed that he will take charges in this interim government, but our coordinators talked to him, and he changed his mind, and now he's coming.
All right. So you are all, all excited that he's going to be there tomorrow, and you are pinning a lot of hopes on Dr. Mohammad Yunus that he will steer Bangladesh in the right direction, away from all the politics that you and your friends have been seeing over the last few years, and you want a new Bangladesh to happen, a Bangladesh that will be beneficial for the new generation of your country, that includes yourself. Stay online. We'll continue to have our conversation. I just have to revert to my guest in the studios. Dr. Tughral, reports talk of fresh protests that broke out in a Dhaka neighborhood today, when hundreds of officials from the central bank forced 4 of its deputy governors to resign over alleged corruption. This has been said by some sources in the Bangladeshi bank. The bank has not officially commented on that. Are the protesters, as of course one of those who has joined us from Bangladesh also says, extending their agitation beyond the removal of Hasina Wajid's government, beyond the whole quota issue that began these protests in the first place?
Omar Sahab, it will be a very large process. It will be cleaning the Augean stables. It's not an easy process,
of course,
because we also know that the army was sponsored by the Indians. The present chief, who has just been in office for 1 month, is an appointee of Hasina Wajid, and the mere fact that she was allowed to escape on an army helicopter or Air Force helicopter into Agartala, and from Agartala probably she was sent on a Bangladesh Air Force C-130J to Hindon Airport, Air Base near Delhi, goes to point out that the army or the armed forces were facilitating her. So people in the central bank, people in the
she was received by Ajit Doval of all people.
Yeah, Ajit Doval was there to receive her. So she is a protege of Ajit Doval, and I know that she was recruited in Delhi when she was spending her time there in exile once her late father had been butchered by the Bangladesh army itself. So you see, it will take time before you clean up all the mess which has been created by almost 20 years of Hasina rule. People owe their loyalties to her, and although the Indians have fled, they have reduced their embassy staff, and also the consulates have closed and all that. But still, it will take them time to shake off the Indian hegemony or Indian control over
that. Is if that hegemony can be shaken off.
Absolutely,
that is a huge question mark as well.
Absolutely. There is this Rapid Action Battalion, the hated police force, they used to wear black uniforms, and one of my classmates from when we were together, he tells me that people lived in mortal terror of the Rapid Action Battalion. So these kind of paramilitary forces, or they have to be liquidated before people can sigh a breath of relief. It's still, I think, and as you mentioned, the fresh protests have broken out. So my sympathies with these young people. I hope they get what they want, but it'll take time before a thorough audit and thorough overhaul of the Bangladesh government takes place.
All right, let's come to our young guest, Sumon. Solyman, I'd like to understand. I just talked to my other guests in the studio about some fresh protests that happened, and that forced one of the major banks in Bangladesh to remove some of its employees that were involved in corruption. Is a corruption-free Bangladesh also on the agenda of the protesters now that the government of Hasina Wajid is no more? Secondly, how important will it be for you and your friends and all the protesters that are in Bangladesh to ensure what Hasina's fate should be or could be? What's your take on that?
For your third question, why not? As I said before, we have got a chance to rebuild our country. Then why not? We want changes in every single sector, wherever Hasina interfered in her time. Not only in the central bank, there are changes coming in Islami Bank, which was one of the best banks before Hasina era. And she ruined that bank. You know, we called our generation the Generation Z. That this generation will fix everything, including bank sector as well as the share market. You know, share market is falling in their wishes. They wish to fall, then fall. And about Hasina's fate, actually, we have decided Hasina's fate with us already. We have decided it. Now it's up to her what she will do. But it is sure that she is never coming back. His son Joy also said to BBC yesterday, she is not coming back. But her fate we already have decided. And about New Delhi, if New Delhi has done nothing wrong with Bangladesh, then there is nothing to afraid of. They are maybe afraid because in the one-sided election, they have oftenly put their support on the Hasina. That's why they are keeping themselves safe. I think it's just their protocol, nothing else.
All right, but of course they have removed their non-essential staff from their embassy as well as maybe an apprehension of what could happen to them as well. So there is something going on as far as the Indian side is concerned, isn't it?
Yes, it is. They already get back some of their employees. They just keep emergency service for emergency services. Whoever provided emergency services, then only they are keeping in Bangladesh. Otherwise, other employee they have already taken back them. Maybe they are just following their protocols. Yeah.
Well, that we will see in the next coming days. Stay online with us, Dr. Tughral. The former Prime Minister and BNP chairperson Khalida Zia has been released. She's not the only person who's been released. There's another also leader who's been released. She is in poor health as far as we're concerned, but we all remember she used to be in power when Hasina wasn't. There was a huge rebellion. That is why she was put under house arrest. Do you see some kind of a situation with Khalida Zia could return to power?
I doubt it very much. Khalida Zia, as you yourself said, is in poor health. You remember there was a time when they used to call the war between the Begums, Hasina Wajid and Begum Khalida Zia. She was a more reasonable woman, no doubt, but she's been kept in the prison for a very long time and she's in poor health. I doubt if she comes back. People like Sumon, who was sitting over there, they are going to be the future leaders of Generation Z. He talked about himself.
Yes.
So they are the people who are going to rule. So I don't know whether they will be able to put a stop to these veterans coming into positions of power or not. But I think the people of Bangladesh are more vocal, they are more educated, they are more enlightened, they know what they want. And it's very unfortunate that despite being an independent country for so long, they have still suffered from poor leadership.
True.
And although they had been claiming that they have come up as an Asian tiger, but the fact of the matter is that the political situation within the country was terrible, and people were afraid. As I was talking to you, one of my friends was
what the police about the
police, etc. And he was sending me messages on WhatsApp, and immediately he would delete it. The fear was so much, although the writing was on the wall that this hated government is about to collapse, but they were also worried. So Bangladesh, I'm sure they have a bright future, and I hope that the relation between Pakistan and Bangladesh are restored, because under Hasina Wajid they were damaged, and Pakistan, we don't have
of course she had the backing of India, and India didn't want Bangladesh and Pakistan to resume good relations.
Absolutely. So they were totally against Pakistan and Bangladesh becoming brotherly nations, having good friendly relations again. So.
All right. My final question to you, Mohammad, Solyman, Sumon, how is the situation today in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, in other parts of the country? Are protests continuing in different parts of Bangladesh? What are now the demands that are being put forward by you and your fellow protesters? And secondly, do you feel that the life is coming back to normal? The schools have reopened, the offices have reopened. Tell us a little bit about what the current situation in Bangladesh now is.
currently situation is getting normal day by day. It has to be as normal as any other peaceful city in the world. We just need some time. And about current situation, like yesterday and day before yesterday night, the people, I think this rumor is getting popular by Sheikh Hasina's Chhatralik party. They are spreading some rumors that there are some, Hindu mandirs, Hindus houses we are burning. They are just spreading some rumors, but these are just rumors. The madrasa students also coming to the mandirs, and they are uh, standing whole night there. That's nobody can touch here. So
But are
things
the
are coming
protests going
normal.
on? But Solyman, are the protests going on in different parts of Bangladesh as we speak today as well?
Yeah, yeah. Some protests, like the police forces, are protesting right now. They have demands. They also put their uh, demands to the police IGP. The already IGP is changed, so they are not coming back to work already. They are also bank staff protesting, and also general workers in different sectors. They are protesting because the dictator Hasina put her people in every sector and made sure that only they will serve her purposes. That's why it is happening. Now people want whoever people she put in every sector, they must be removed. That is the reason now protesting is going on here in several places.
All right. Well, we hope that whatever your demands are, at least the good demands are accepted by the government or the interim government, and that your country comes back to an era of peace, of prosperity, and of development. And that is what Pakistan wants, that our brotherly country Bangladesh also prospers, becomes better and stronger. Thank you very much, Mohammad Solyman Sumon, Quota reform activist, joining us from Bangladesh to have given us the latest situation as far as your country is concerned. And thank you so very much, Dr. Tughral, Yamin, to have joined us in the studio as well. It's always an asset to have you, here and talk about different international issues, because you give a very solid and opinionated point of view that gives us an insight on what is happening. Thank you very much.
Very kind.
Let's come to our last stories, ladies and gentlemen. The first concerns, of course, what is happening in the US as far as the elections and the campaigns are concerned. Now, kamalaharris has chosen a vice presidential nominee. He is none other than Governor timwalz, who is Minnesota governor, and they have campaigned for the first time together yesterday in Philadelphia, kicking off a multi-day tour of battleground states that is aimed at introducing voice to the national stage. Now, the thing with Walz is that there are a lot of good things that a lot of people have been talking about as far as he is concerned or his policies are concerned. He has been pro-climate change. He has been talking about tax cuts for the middle class. He's been talking about free school. Means that this is what he has implemented as governor of Minnesota, and this is maybe one of the reasons why Kamala Harris has chosen him. Maybe there are other strategic reasons as well, which will be unearthed, of course, in the days that follow. The elections are nearing as we speak, and they're going to happen in November. Finally, a new study reveals more on the early hobbit humans in Indonesia's flores. Now, these are new discoveries that have happened, which say that the human beings, I mean the height that we have, for a very, very long time, there was a certain species or our predecessors that weren't as tall as we were. In fact, they were even shorter than what they call the hobbits, as have been seen in different films produced by Hollywood. Now, the hobbits' ancestors, as far as the analytics are concerned, were around 1 meter tall and lived some 700,000 years ago. And of course, these are studies that are happening because a lot of people, especially archaeologists, are interested to know as to what were the origins and how did we evolve into who we are. Although when we see what's happening in different parts of the world, whether it be Palestine and India, maybe we should have gone back to this very era of hobbits. Well, this said, this brings us to the end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories segments pertaining to us, you in Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.